Доброго дня, рада вас сьогодні бачити. Ми презентуємо наше аналітичне дослідження про досвід потерпілих і свідків у справах, що стосуються воєнних злочинів. Медійна ініціатива за права людини робила це дослідження протягом останніх півроку. І сьогодні ми поговоримо про
Today we are going to talk about the theoretical part of this research about the experience of the victims, how they feel in this process, what's the pressure of the system, and also we are going to talk about the ways to support these people and how it's realized in the practice. My name is Oksana Rasolova. I'm the head of the institutional part of this research, and in order to begin I want to tell you a couple of words about this project. Last year we were seeing the aspect of this research, and we saw that the victims were having lack of attention, and we are speaking about the prosecutors, about the accused part, and we are gonna speak about justice, and the victims has very few attention, and we can see that nevertheless. Obstant the conclusions and the results, all the subsequent processes was very long, and the people were waiting for 1 or 2 years in these processes, and it has been influencing the situation very, very strongly, and we got interested of the system, how it was aligned with international standards and the human-oriented approach. So we decided to perform this investigation to analyze the Ukrainian legislation, to analyze the experience of other countries who were during the war and after the war with war crimes, helping the victims in our processes and outside our processes, and we conducted interviews with the victims in order to understand how they overcome these challenges in all the parts of legal system, what is their vision, what is their influence, and how these things influence their vision of the state and the trust in the institution. These are the basic parts of our investigation, and it's been aligned with the creation of the Center of the Support of the Victim. Our representative of the center is connected to us. Therefore, we see some events, some measures of the support from the part of law enforcement, of civil society, and also we can see how the system works, and to verify if it actually works and how it can work. And now the floor is of my colleagues, and in order to begin I want to ask Olga for how much time do you verify this process since 2016. Please tell us about it, about the influence, about the vision and perception. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to give thanks to the authors to perform this investigation, and to the program which is sustaining this project, with realizing this project. Before the full-scale invasion started, as I said before, we are monitoring and investigating the processes since 2016, and we paid attention on the fact that victims are not foreseen in this process. And as an example, I should mention the victims of Lugansk region. And we're talking about the cases of 2014 and about some prisoners who were liberated. As the victims, they were mentioned in different cases, from one case to another. So we're gonna talk about the Lugansk People Republic, and someday we build a connection with this victim, and we ask if they were aware about these cases, about the status of victim, and these victims didn't ever know about the status of victim. They were not informed about the hearings, about the audiences, about their needs. So in the majority of these cases, these victims were not examined, and they lose their interest in this process, and after all, they lost their interest. So in our investigation, we are not talking about the status of victims, even in the international events. We appreciate the desire of the victims for justice. And when we're talking about justice, it's a very highly used word. We all want the justice, but actually it's not an abstract concept. It's very concrete feelings of the people living the tragedies, the losses. That's why our goal of national and international justice is to feel this word with a concrete sense. That's why we understand perfectly that they will not satisfied by no decisions in international courts, and we have some links with international experience, and in the majority of cases, and in the majority of international courts of the armed conflicts, the victims were not satisfied by the results, but after all, they lived with the feeling that their tragedy was respected, that this was a process with links with many people, participated by many people, that there was a temptation to satisfy their desire for the justice. But the things we are seeing nowadays, and since 2014, that the victims of war crimes are in a different situation. We have no approach to these victims because, unfortunately, the attention is very low, even though we have examination of the victims, even though it's very important case. So it's always in absentia. We are seeing very formal bureaucratic vision from all the points of view of the accusation, of the part of accused people, from the side of the court, and the worst thing is that we are seeing it from the civil society, and very often I see this kind of approach, very commercial approach, and it's real. That I remember this situation that. Speaking about the tragedy in Yagidne, when the people were detained in unhuman conditions, and in fact we had almost no journalists in this tragedy, and many journalists told me that it's enough to speak about the tragedies, and it's a question of our approach, and this is the way we are talking about this tragedy, and it's the path of justice. And we asked if this was a justice really, and we know that in this process we have many work for us, for human rights defenders, for psychologists, and we leave the space for them because they are the specialists, male and female. But from the point of view of the monitoring and of courts and the preliminary investigations, we were trying to explain what was going on, what are the expectations from the state, from the courts, from the law enforcement, and we are truly thankful to the people realizing this idea of involvement of the witnesses and victims. And it's important to feel this work with the functions, with the sense, and also, we're going to perform the civil control. These are the things which are the most important for us. And actually, we are talking not about law enforcement, about the courts. Unfortunately, we are talking about the journalists, about the civil society. We need to participate in this process of justice. We need to be participants of this process. We should not forget that is a process which is going on now. And these are the pages of our handbooks of history, and these are the words of our victims. That's why our support is really important, and our indifference is really painful. That's why our event is marked by the logo not to be indifferent, and we need to participate when writing this common history. We are in an extraordinary situation. We are in an extraordinary situation when we realize the process of justice during the war conflict. And no one has experienced such a thing, but we need to be very responsible after all. So thank you so much. I want to add that we are talking about justice, about the enforcement, and also we need to remember about the legal basis of this justice, because for instance in our research we've seen that it's obvious, but it was unexpected that actually the victims of war crimes in these cases and Ukrainian legislation see these people in the same way as some other kind of victims. There's no difference between a victim of violations, sex abuse, and other cases. So for legislators, is the same stuff. So it defines of how the system defines the status of a victim. And now I want to pass to the question of the status of the victim. It's not only about how system works from the documentation point of view and legal basis, and also about the human factor. So I want to ask Ludmila to tell about her experience. I know that you spoke to different representatives of law enforcement in Kherson and the region of Kherson, and you have different kinds of impressions about these processes. Please tell us about it. Tell us more. What was this experience about? How did you work with the prosecutor office, and what's going on now? Thank you so much. So, good afternoon. I want to begin by saying that I was liberated from this arrest during the occupation of Kherson. I was liberated with my family, and no one could submit an application to the police because the policemen were also under the occupation, and my sister and me were captured. So after the liberation of Kherson, maybe at the end of November of 2022, we present the application to the police of Kherson, writing the request about the captivity, and police were treating us very kindly, and they paid attention to our application. They put it into unique registration, and we had just one case of a communication in 2022. We came. We were examined under the protocol of victim. I don't know. Maybe it's because Kherson suffered the lack of electricity. Maybe it was difficult to capture this data. But we found out that these protocols were lost because in 2023, maybe at the beginning of summer, I was contacted by the Office of Prosecutor of Kherson, and when the prosecutor came to Odessa, because now we are in Odessa as internally displaced people, the representatives of prosecutor office submitted new protocols. So as my sister and I were in different places where the people were captured on Luteranska Street and then on Teploenergetikov Street. We are talking about different cases, and of course, the victims who were on the territory of the main department of the police on Luteranska Street are now investigated by the prosecutor's office. And talking about my own experience of communication with law enforcement, I can say that it's more comforting for me to work with the prosecutor's office because the representatives of this office are more professional. And during all the period of investigation, we were talking several times. They came to Odessa. They called us to be examined. This was captured, and we were talking about the suspicious people. About the facts and talking about the police, my communication with them is remote by telephone, and let's say regarding the documentation is formal, bureaucratic. So we're talking about the messengers, documents sent by messenger. I need to print these documents on my own. They consider it's necessary to do in such a way. I need to sign this document and send them. We had some documentation submitted to the court. There were some cases Olga mentioned, and you are considered the victim in different cases, and also when they find some people under suspicion, they open another case dedicated to this other person. And we may talk about several cases, but you don't realize what's going on with these cases and processes, and what was submitted in the court, what is in the face of preliminary investigation. So we have no communication with the police. We have more communication with the representatives of prosecutor office. Ludmila, thank you so much. I wanted to ask some questions. You are very informed in this legal details. You know very well the situation, and we've been talking about it several times. But from the human point of view, do you have any kind of expectation on this process? Do you wait for the result and what this result can give you, and what do you see from the human point of view, and what's your influence? What kind of expectation do you have in this process? Yes, thank you so much for your question. Of course, I want to believe, I want to expect that the people committing these crimes will be captured. But speaking about the case of Kherson, about the people being in captivity, we see that the investigation is too long. Maybe it's too difficult to define the people dealing with these crimes. But talking about the example of the isolator of the captivity in Teploenergetikov, we've been having a few rotations, and the first rotation regarded the military stuff, and maybe it's been easier to define these people who were present in the Kherson region. But during my captivity, and this is a letter from the 5th of August till 17th of September, we had the rotation, and we didn't have the military staff of Russian Federation. We've been having kind of police, Russian police. Maybe this is the reason why it was so difficult to find these people performing the criminal duties there. And the most interesting thing is speaking about the communication. In the practice, it's very nice to have communication between the police and journalists and victims, because in such a way, during the communication, we could define all the stuff of this isolator. And after all, maybe I'll say about a secret that in the nearest future we are gonna have an investigation of journalists of Suspilne Telebachення about this prison, and how this police staff were captured during this rotation when I've been captured. Of course, we want justice. Of course, we want in a perfect situation, we want these people being captured. But in our reality, unfortunately, we see that even though we have any conclusions, these are the remote conclusions, and these people are not accused the way they should be. And Lyudmila, what does it mean for you? I consider, from the formal point of view, from the point of view of documents, the people have been captured, but in fact the people continue their normal life. In Ukraine, the people were sentenced, but in Russia, these people still continue to be in service. This people or person does not feel anything about being sentenced. This person doesn't feel being captured in a sentence, and I consider it's not enough. Thank you, Lyudmila. So I'd want now to explain in a few words that our investigation is entitled "The Cooling Effect," and our team was speaking about this investigation, and Andriy, our colleague, was talking about the cooling effect when a person is ready to be involved in the investigation, to come into the court, but then a person doesn't see any results, and any expectation of a real sentence are not justified. So this very warm contact with the law enforcement can be transformed into a distance between a person and the law enforcement and the legal system, with no trust to the state. And in order to avoid the cooling effect, one of the instrumental tools is a human being approach. We use the word a person who experienced crime. We don't use the term victim, and we are begging the people not to use the term victim, because it doesn't mean that this person is a victim. They are the people experiencing some experience, and it does not define the life, the future part of those people. And in order to let our court system, our legal system to work in an efficient way, we need to apply this approach based on the dignity of a human being, to the respect, to the security, to the conditions of control of the situation, of the condition where a person is not left behind. And even though these are pretty abstract things, we are talking about very concrete instruments. And now I want to pass to this very concrete tool. And now we have Marta Zmyslova with us, representing Eurofan, a civil organization. She's representing victims and people experienced some experiences. Dear Marta, good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, I want you to speak about the question of practice. We've been talking about the theoretical part of the issue. Please tell us what is the practical aspect of the human being-centered approach, and what do you see in the court system and the legal system? Thank you. Thank you so much for a possibility to be in this event. It's a very important question, and there's a very important conclusions. And talking about the cases, as an organization, we grant legal support, and we're talking about the legal support. And as a lawyer, I also participate in these cases. And if talking about this kind of approach oriented to the victim, I'll need to say that our law enforcement are trying to take measures in order to apply this approach, considering the interest of the people experienced these crimes. But as we are in the conflict, and we have any gaps in this sphere, and we are talking about some difficult moments in our practice, and we are talking about some examples of my colleagues. In the central level, everyone understands perfectly the importance of the support, but talking about the local level of the Kherson region, we see some problems in the context of the communication with victims. We see the tendency of the victims who informed about the experience to law enforcement during a very long time. There are no legal cases regarding this information. So there is no information about what's going on about the situation. They have no contact. Moreover, they have the tendency of not having any documents about the cases. Moreover, in the practice, we're talking about the situation. Nevertheless, we try to avoid multiple cases of examination. We try to use the video resources to perform the examination in order to use these materials. We have many cases of videos of bad qualities, and we need to arrange another examination. So these are details, and these cases are not unique in the context of legislation of the law. Talking about the cases of sentences, of criminal cases. We're talking about the confidential character of the situation. We talk about the security measures, and we are talking about the effect of change the data regarding the address and place of living of the victim. So, for instance, we have a question regarding the official requests within the framework of legal cases. So when we are talking about some sentences, how the sentence can be performed, and it's another problem requiring a regulation of the level of legislation. Moreover, probably it's not that correct to talk about information space, and of course it does influence on the behavior of the victims requiring help. So we try to present these problems in very sensitive way. So also when talking about the legal case in the court, we need to understand that we change some personal data, and how the court can define the personality in such a case. So if we do change the personal data of a person, so these are the little details which influence on the process, and it changes the approach of the victim, of the vision of the victim. And of course, we need to motivate the victim to ask for help, but we need to change the system of these approaches regarding the help. And when we will perfection the system, when we change, we will have more and more requests for help. And according to the last data, we have 294 requests reflecting the situation. And of course, we are talking about the real cases and real reasons to ask the help. And of course, we are talking about the fear of the victims to help, to ask for help. We are talking about very long processes, about the fear of examination, and we have to talk about the lack of trust in the enforcement system. And as for today, we have two draft law registered in the Ukrainian parliament, which regard the creation of the register of victims of war crimes and armed conflict in Ukraine. So we focused our attention on the creation of the system of reparation, the private reparation, expressed not only in the financial context, but also we are talking about the program including medical services, medical options. So when we improve, step by step, improve our system of support of victim, it will influence on the state of the situation of requests regarding the support, and it will help us to realize our human being oriented approach. And we are talking about the communication, about the coordinating job in the part of a complex support of the victims. Thank you so much, Marta, for being connected with us, and thank you so much for your detailed answer to our question. And you mentioned also the official system and the change in the approach. And I'll ask Veronika Plotnikova to tell about how we change this approach, how the Center of Support works, and if you see that this system can be changed. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Indeed, in our investigation, thank you so much for your investigation. Thank you so much, dear Marta. And thank you so much for your courage and for letting us speak about the current situation. I'm truly influenced by the situation because I was born in Kherson. So I can evaluate the situation not openly. And of course, I want to say that this cooling effect could may take place in certain moment because talking about the legal system regarding the war crimes, we need to talk about real expectation regarding the military courts. And this is a very serious conversation about our real results and what kind of help and support are we gonna need, and why the war crimes are not only about statistics, about the number of cases. It's about the quality, and it's about the cases regarding human beings, and it's about implementing not only our job. It's not only about our job. It's our job having an element of common activity in order to let us understand the importance of it, and not let anybody forget it. And we are talking about very useful thing. So without any further delay, and without going into details, I want to talk about some practical aspects. So we are talking about some problems we have already mentioned. Many problems are connected with the system. We have very real examples. These are not unique, and we do understand that we may begin from this point because we understand that we may implement a lot of work, but a human being won't be informed about it, and So, one of our priorities as for now is the implementation of communication strategy for the victims, considering that we need some concrete algorithms, both in accordance to the investigation, the communication between the prosecutor and advocacy, the coordinator, and the victim. We need to understand what could be the expectation regarding any legal cases, and we need to be fair with ourselves. The war crimes are not about a very rapid consequences and conclusions, because today we mentioned the international experience. Our colleagues from Croatia, considering some aspects in 19th, until nowadays, they have several institutions dealing with war crimes. So we need to understand what will be going on. So it's a very repeated phrase. It's a real phrase. It's not a spread firm. Speaking about the work of these authorities, we need to organize a kind of marathon with less loss ever, because we know many examples. So our role of coordinators is about sustaining a good communication with the victims. I want to mention the perspectives because as for nowadays, we are working about separate structure belonging to the General Prosecutor's Office, but the General Prosecutor has already mentioned that we are working in a very practical cases in regions. We are talking about the Kherson region. We are talking about the regional prosecutors' offices working with the war crimes cases, and we understand in the future perspective very notable quantity of our victims are gonna be in different regions, and all the Ukraine will need us. And now we're talking about the imperfections of our legislation. I'll be maybe the first in saying that our legislation is not adapted to the human being, and also we are gonna need to make many important things. It's about changing the senses to reconstruct the system of communication, because in some moments related to the situation, it's enough for the actors of state to understand that they should obtain some information between them without organize any additional steps in order to obtain the information. And about the accessibility of this help, we are talking about some strange moment. Thank you so much for mentioning that our victims of war crimes are not different from another types of victims, and they need state service. And now we have another situation when these people actually have the status of victim of a war crime, and it's confirmed by the state. But in order to obtain the access to any kind of service, these people need some additional status of internally displaced people, or maybe some people with no state, and it's not about the human being oriented approach. It's about some additional procedures, and these are the stories we could resolve even now. And when talking about the information by Marta, I just want to clarify that the draft law, which is now reviewed by the Ukrainian parliament, are talking about the reparation, and we are talking about the register of victims, but about the registers of all the people affected by the war. The initiative of the General Prosecutor's Office, we are going to realize in the nearest future. It's about the architecture of the register. We are talking a lot about it, and it's a unique register of the people affected by the war, considering that the war crimes not only took place in 2022. We're talking about the processes since 2014, and now we understand that one male or female victim can be part of several cases, because it depends on the location, on the episode of the preliminary investigations, because sometimes we are talking about the state service of security and some other cases. So the register of these people should be formed as a story where the center of this universe should be a human being, a victim, in order to see the story. How many cases are we gonna need? And moreover, let's mention a thing we don't want to speak about. We need to speak about the re-victimizations. We need to talk about domestic violence during the war. We are gonna tell that a victim could be transformed into an aggressor due to the stress. So we need to understand what a complex help a person could need. So I am truly thankful to have this opportunity to talk about this aspect, and these points we mentioned today are the most important points. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Veronica. And I'd want to tell you a little bit more. I know that you work with the company represented by Marta, and now we are constructing the new system of work with the victims. Well, thank you. So, federal system is a story. It's not about the creation. It's about changing the priorities, because a big part of it was performed and is continuing to be performed. So the reference system is a system of redirection. It's about the evaluation of the needs of the victim, and also it's about the duties of the coordinator. And some moments, some aspects are connected with our work, because victim has the first contact with the coordinator after the consents on the behalf of the victim. And in the beginning of our work, we should evaluate the needs of this person and take into consideration the real expectations and real needs of the people, if the people need legal support or access to social services. And also it's about constructing all the plan of the activity, in which moments this is about the state services, and in any moments, we know that our civil society is it's a very strong organism which can satisfy these needs by the activity performed by some civil society organization. We are talking about the families of soldiers, and in fact we are talking about the interactive map of connections and interconnections, both in central and local levels, and talking about our dynamics. What are the organizations and state service providing this help? We need to understand it because we need that the state of victim is not enough. We need to understand the group a victim belongs to, and we need to understand if it's a question of any other legal status and some other aspects. And talking about our experience, because we've been already beginning to work with the victims of since January, and we have the consents with some victims, and we are talking about some structure units, and we are talking about the need for justice, and also we're talking about some decisions, some resolutions taking time because we have 2 years of war, and we are talking about the situation when we don't need a shelter, for instance. We need some opportunities in order to restart working, to restart building the proper life. And these are very difficult decisions for the families. For instance, if a family has only one victim, the whole family will need the support. We understand that a part of family could be victims who did not submit the applications on this issue because of the fear. We understand it, and nevertheless, we are always ready to contact you in order to obtain the justice. But the things we are seeing now is system and the need of decisions. We see the need to understand what's the responsibility of the state in such a case. It's a clarity of processes for people, because honestly, even we having our legal background, we take time in order to understand the situation and imagine the whole situation, and we understand the shock provoked in the soul of a normal human being. That's why we need to think very seriously, think a lot about the communication in order to be able to explain very difficult things in plain English. Thank you so much. Dear Veronica, thank you so much. At the very beginning, you said that now we're not gonna talk about some numbers. So we have more than 120 war crimes registered, and when working about this on this research, we know that only 246 cases were presented in the court. So it means that that hundreds of people are gonna be part of this process for years and years, and we are talking about some momentaneous decisions, and we're gonna need very, very much time in order to reconstruct the system, and we are truly grateful for granting this opportunity to make this research, to prepare recommendations for the people. Unfortunately, now we have very few time for this presentation. I'm truly grateful to our colleagues, to Veronica and Marta. Thank you, Marta, for being with us online. And please, we are begging you to study this research and add your inputs when working with similar cases. Thank you so much for your attention. And So if you have any question, we have 5 minutes for these questions. It's not that much. So we're talking about the support on the behalf of European Commission. So you performed a monitoring regarding the war crimes. If we had not the war, we hadn't this coordination center. So during this 5 years, European Union is begging to create any kind of similar coordination center. So maybe we are talking about the system foreseeing the conservation of the proofs about the contact between the accused part and the victim. And we are talking about the thing called a marathon. So regarding the question, what other needs you see now regarding the interaction with the European Union, the communication in the Justice Authority? So thank you so much for your question. Regarding the things we saw, first of all, we see that Ukrainian legislation does not complies with European norms. So if we include our norms in a certain package of norms, certain list, it could be very useful to align our norms with the European ones. And speaking about more practical things to do in Logo, first of all, we are talking about legal support to the victims, because in Ukraine we have the legal support, but not for all the people being part of these cases, because we are aware of these cases even in Kyiv region, where the part of processes are the parents, the members of families of the victims, who can be considered to victims, and it can be useful for us to see this aspect. And of course, we are talking about the court. We haven't spoken about the court and what's going on in this court sale. So we're talking about some services. For instance, we've been in the hearing regarding the case of Medvedev. A victim took 3 hours in order to wait for all the parts of the process. We have the witnesses, other victims in other cases, other people, and all the things are in near the court cell. So a person needs 3 hours in order to wait and hear someone say, "I'm sorry, it's too late." So we have some people with some certain needs and expectation of this service. So I understand it, but one of the monitors, when they talk about these victims, of course, a person asking for this contact, maybe it's useful, but on the other hand, a victim can have no desire to contact. And on the other hand, we have cases in Western Europe where the people are coordinated together, and the person is informed about the behavior in court sale, but in order not to be shocked about some questions, this person needs to understand that maybe it's a stress, probably because this person was not informed, and it's also about the orientation in the court cell in this space. And of course, we have some courts working on this issue, and this aspect is also very important. And of course, we're talking about the process in the court. One moment, speaking about the courts, we have a coincidence. Now we are working with our colleagues from the project of the USAID. We defined from 3 up to 5 courts in order to have a training for the court staff in order to be able to create this continuous story. Because in court sale, we understand that the whole process will be kind of changed. And now we are taking into account this part. We are going to explain to the person the special character of the questions. And despite of the video conference, for instance, a person can be examined for another time. So we need to develop this point. And also, I'm gonna add some other things. During our monitoring, we discovered something not only about the feelings, about this participation, and about the sentences in absentia, because in fact, these are the sentences which are not performed, because these are the sentences in absentia, and we have a problem of the cases considered the political cases about the war crimes, and obviously it's necessary to make some modification, and the European countries should work on it. And it's about the international advocacy, and obviously the Minister of Justice needs to begin to start bilateral consultations with all the countries in order to implement these details within the framework of bilateral treaties. It's really important because when we are talking about the future in 10 years, we'll need to do something with these people who can be captured in 10 years. And obviously, it's our thing we'll need to do. And we asking for the support on the behalf of the European Union, the countries which are partners. We talked about everything, so maybe I'll add some things about the communication. Which is very weak, and we are talking about the hearings, about the hearings and the court sale, and what are the dates of the hearings, for instance, and the people can be frustrated about it. Maybe it's if the hearing can be in one place and you are in another place, and maybe also if you need some actions in presentia, it can be difficult. Yeah. Thank you. Maybe Marta has anything to add. Maybe we have no time. So if you have question, you may contact us directly, especially in our web pages and emails. And now today we are gonna publish our research. We may see it in a very detailed way. And of course, it was obvious for us when we started working. Thank you so much again for being here, and have a nice day. Thank you.